Okay, good morning. Um, Welcome to the webinar. We're going to talk about luggage today in regards to search. But before we do that, we have a few house rules. It looks like we have some people that are joining us, maybe for the first time. I'm just looking at the list here. So welcome. Please make sure to mute your microphone. I have muted someone who's on the phone today. I'm sorry, I don't know who that is, but you are muted. I'm going to open up the chat here so that I can see it. Just a second. All right. So we have a group chat. If you cannot hear me, please let me know. I do have some developers standing by that are watching this webinar and paying attention to some of your questions. So thank you. They're letting me know that I'm coming through okay. We ask that you not use video. I think it's okay, maybe at a future date we'll try to use video. It's really, for me, because it gets a bit distracting when I see a bunch of movement on the screen. So I really appreciate you turning videos off for now. Also, remember to ask questions in the chat. As I said, we do have the chat box. If you are online on your computer, you can ask questions. And I encourage you to do that throughout the webinar. We, like I said, do have people standing by able to answer those chat questions. So I may not actually see them as I'm speaking in some cases. And so I just want to make sure that those get answered, and we'll do so. If your questions do not get answered during the webinar, we will follow up with you and answer those questions for you through email and other methods. Generally, the first 20 minutes is a presentation. So today we're going to talk about search, categories, and tags. The second 20 minutes we have open for office hours kind of thing, where I will be here and can answer questions. In order for us to stick around, we'll need to have questions in the chat to answer. So please think of those questions throughout this webinar and prepare them for the chat, kind of open session at the end. The last few webinars, we haven't had many questions, and so I encourage you to please ask those questions. And then, of course, be respectful of others, which I know that we all are. So without further ado, if I can move forward here. Just a minute. Maybe. All right. We're going to talk about Punxsutawney Phil. So happy Groundhog Day. I had mentioned this in the post. In case you don't know, apparently we have 6 more weeks of winter. So this is the little clip from the Today Show, and if you're interested, you can watch the little video of him and the presentation. It was kind of cute. So anyway, unfortunately we'll have more winter, but isn't he cute? He's very cute. Okay. So next, we're going to talk about some online resources. Again, this is something that we do at the beginning of the presentation, just to help you make sure that you have resources available to you for the luggage platform and accessibility, etc. So we are Biology IT. I apologize. I don't know that I actually introduced myself today. My name is Ann Grazel. I work for this group. And essentially, my role is project management and training. So most of what I do involves training all of you and helping you learn a little bit more about adding content to your website. We have a luggage showcase. You can find this by going to the luggagedocs.info website and then clicking on Showcase. It's a very nice way to search and find other sites that are like yours that are using luggage. It's also nice to see what other people are doing. You know, what are other departments doing? What are other collaborative groups doing? What are other faculty members doing on their sites that have luggage? This is a very nice way to browse those. We have extension sites. We have sites from other groups on campus that are using luggage that aren't just biology IT sites. So please feel free to browse the showcase. We also show feature examples. If you have been using luggage for a little while and would like to learn how people are creating banners, you know, which sites do banners well, which sites have a great blog, this is a page for you. If you're interested in accessibility and usability, the Digital Access website at Iowa State is a great resource for you. Zaira is our web accessibility coordinator for the university, and she would be more than happy to talk with you about web accessibility. I spoke with her yesterday, and I believe she will be able to join us in April for our webinar in April, and we are going to be talking about accessibility. So here we go. We're going to talk about search and tags. It looks like we're getting a little bit of noise in the audio, so I'm not sure what that's coming from or if it's really terrible or not. Okay, so please let us know if it is. We'd like to know those things. Also pay attention to that chat. We have developers, like I said, that are putting in links for you. So all of those resources we just mentioned, they have links in the chat, so you can visit those links throughout the presentation. There are going to be other links during the presentation that they will add as well. The items we're going to talk about today are listed here in bullet points. I am doing this webinar a bit different. There is going to be a bit of a PowerPoint presentation today because I feel that what we're talking about is really a discussion and an understanding of what really are categories and tags. Those of you that have used luggage know that the platform is based on search. So we're going to talk about what that means. We're also going to talk about the benefits, specifically how to add excellent categories and tags, what those should be. And very briefly, we will go into the difference between an open and closed term list and a faceted search. So essentially, to help you understand maybe what a faceted search is if you haven't heard about that before, I feel like we can certainly take this conversation a bit deeper in the future. So today, we're going to do a very broad overview. And I've been talking to myself about this all morning and hoping that I don't go too deep today. I really just want to cover the surface. And please ask questions, and we can certainly go a bit deeper where we need to today. So the definition of search on our Wikipedia famous website is an attempt to find something. And really that's what we're doing. We are attempting to find content. We're attempting to connect people with your expertise, essentially. It's based on categories and tags, which is very helpful for many reasons. It's that you can have multiple relationships with a single piece of content, and you don't actually need to have one path to get there. So let's take a quick look. I found this online. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, a different screen for a minute. If I can find the proper one. Okay. All right. So there's our groundhog. We're going to move on. We're going to take a little throwback into the 90s. And we're going to look at a little site screenshot that they've got here for Nike. So it used to be a very common way to develop websites, right? We had a single item or a few, you know, for Nike, we're looking at different sports, basketball, running, soccer, training, and outdoor. When you click on those items, this is not clickable, but when you click on those items, you're going to a single page most likely that explains information about basketball. And maybe there's a couple links that take you somewhere else on their site about basketball. So there's one place to click and you move from there. So today, when you look at a website, it's a little bit different. So essentially, you have something else there in front of you. You don't just have words or terms to look at to choose. You have this big box with a search little icon in it. You have a little magnifying glass. And so that's what we're really getting at. You know, what is search? You know, why is it important? What are we doing with search? You know, search is so powerful. And as you can see that with Nike, there's really not a whole lot of terms on the page. You're not inundated with the thousands of pages that they most likely have on their website. So hopefully this gives you a bit of a picture to think about as we move forward. All right. I'm going to hop back to my other screen. So let's talk a little bit about the benefit of search. You've seen a little bit about what it looks like, but what are the benefits of it? So we're going to start talking a little bit about audience first. So your website generally will have multiple audiences, and each of those audiences are going to be looking for information differently. So for example, a prospective student may look for content about a degree that has to do with insects. So chances are that that student is going to search in Google for insects or bugs and degree. And a different audience, such as researchers or collaborators, may look for similar information using search terms of entomology degree. So due to the fact that your site has a great list of categories and tags, those audiences can both find the information that they're looking for and land on essentially that page that they need very quickly. By doing this, you can also help train your site visitors. So that prospective student who may not know what the actual term is, you know, you're thinking potentially even, you know, a high school student who doesn't know, what that degree is called, for example. When they land on the page, the top of the page will say, entomology degree. You're actually teaching them at that moment, from the moment they visit the website, what the name of that degree is. And so that's actually kind of great to help teach people. The other thing is, I have some notes here, so I just want to make sure that I follow them a bit, is that we can create content which accounts for these multiple mental pathways. So as I just explained, you can have, those were just two mental pathways, but there can be multiple pathways if you have multiple categories and tags that are used effectively. We all have a different mental pathway on how we think about content, how we think about information. It's based on an algorithm of many things. It's based on how much information that we know. It's based on our degrees, our education, our interests. So that's a very, very good benefit. Another thing is You know, I showed you a picture early from the 90s of Nike. Kind of after that, what started to happen in websites is that people would make the same page twice, and they would put it in 2 different spots on the menu. So it would be a sub-page under 2 different areas. And the reason they did that was to try to accommodate for multiple mental pathways. With categories and tags, you can create that page of content one time, just once, and it will actually show up in multiple places on your site, depending on what people search for. So that's a very nice thing about categorizing and tagging. So let's talk about tags specifically. In order to start this, in order to start this conversation, I'm going to play a short video that I made, so I apologize, you get to listen to my voice a little bit more. And then we'll have a bit of a discussion after that. So let me share that video. Just a second here. Share. And here we go. I'm going to go ahead and mute myself so that you can hear the video.
Hi! Let's talk about search, specifically tags. In our example today, we will be creating pages for a recipe website. First, let's make a page for an apple pie recipe and add the tags apple, pie, and bake. Now, these terms are associated with the apple pie recipe page. Next, let's make a page for an apple glazed pork recipe and add the tags apple, pork, and grill. Now, these terms are associated with the pork recipe. Last, let's make a page for a fruit kebab recipe and add the tags apple and kebab. Now, these terms are associated with the kebab recipe. What happens when we search for these pages on our website? Let's search for apple. All of our pages show up in the search result because every recipe we added has the tag apple. Next, let's do a search for kebab. We get just the fruit kebab in our search result because it was the only page with the tag kebab. So how do tags look on a real website? I just searched for aphids on the Integrated Crop Management website. We have many results. I see that soybean aphids is a tag. Let's click on it. Now, I see that all of my content tagged the term soybean aphids appears in my search result, and I can see in the facet on the left that the soybean aphids tag is selected. Thank you for taking the time to learn about tags. To learn more,
Okay, so hopefully that gives you a brief overview of tags. And I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint here a second. Okay. So really what tags should be are the terms that you feel someone should be searching, may search for to find your information. So in our example of the entomology degree, great tags could be bugs, insects, and that's where, when we talk about categories a little bit later, that's where you can help people find the content that they're looking for in that way. You can have multiple tag terms, so tags are really more of a somewhat unlimited vocabulary. As content editors add content, you can have as many tags as you'd like. The great part about tags are that when you've added a tag, the next content editor to come along will have that tag available to them as they type a new term in. And it's going to be important to use those tags if it's what you're intending. Now, of course, if the tag does not exist, please add it, because that will just enhance your library of tags there. Site index is also a good way to find all of the tags that are on your site. So, for example, if we go to the site index for luggage docks, you're going to be able to see really what that looks like. So when you go to the site index for luggage docks, and usually that's going to be something in the footer that we provide with luggage, where when you click on it, you can actually go to the site index, and it's here for site visitors as well. This is a nice way for them to find what they're looking for in a nice index. So with that, let's start talking about tags. And I'm probably going to go over. I don't know what time it is here. We're doing okay. So I'm gonna go a little bit longer today. I hope that's all right. Categories are terms that should be used to really put all of the content on your site. How should I say this? They're really different buckets that when you add a new piece of information or content to your website, in which you can kind of determine which bucket or buckets that content would fit in. So this is more of an umbrella set of terms that really encompass what you do. So when you have a website, there's an expertise that you have that you're trying to share with others. And there's information that you're trying to share with others. And so essentially what you do is that expertise, and it is the content that relates to that information. So really, if you think about what it is that you do, what's the science that you do, what's the research that you do, what's the connection that you do, if you're a service type of website, what is it that you do to provide to people. And these terms can certainly be scientific terms. So the reason for that is these are the terms that should be the legitimate professional terms for what it is that you do. And that's how you can really teach your site visitors on what those proper terms are. So as scientists and researchers, you can actually engage the end user to learn those terms and really understand a bit more about those concepts. You can have multiple levels of terms. So you may have parent terms and child terms is what they're called. So essentially sub-terms under your main categories. We're running a little bit long on time, so I'm not going to actually visit each of these websites right now, but you may visit these websites to see what the terms are that are being used. So, and I guess I would be doing a disservice if I don't at least visit one. So let's go ahead and take a look at May's surface lipids here. I think I'm gonna have to jump back again. Okay, share screen. All right. So you can see that under the hamburger, this website has scientific terms that they're using to have content be related. So that's one example. I guess I have them all open so I can go to them. Economics, here's a professional list of terms that describe what the Department of Economics does. What is the research related to? What is it that their faculty members and staff members do? If you're on a collaborative site, a collaborative group, this is an example of where, for example, on the integrated crop management site, there are terms in the category list pertaining to what this group does. They do crop production, They have information on equipment and machinery. They have grain handling and storage information, insects and mites, etc. So this is how you can start to think about your categories. So when we just looked at those, there's two different types of vocabulary lists. There's an open vocabulary list and there is a closed vocabulary list. So when we talk about open, we're referring to term lists that you can add to. So for example, we talked about tags and that being really an unlimited number of terms that you can use. And this is an example of open vocabulary. Closed vocabulary are really where the site owners are going to determine what the umbrella terms are for your site. And that would be essentially the categories would be an example of that in the luggage platform. So categories are closed vocabulary. They're very well thought out. They are specific to what the site does, what information the site would like to portray and give to others to learn about. And then we have faceted search. So when we have categories and tags that have been added to content, we can take it a step further and we can now allow our site visitors to sort and filter their content based on the categories and tags that you've given. And in luggage, you can actually search your content and filter it by the type of content that you've added. So for example, you're adding a news item, an event, a video. Those items, those types of content are ways that the end user can kind of go to your site, search for something, and be able to select news, for example. So they can see all of the news that's on your site that's related to the search term that they have typed in. An example of faceted search would be Amazon. So we can jump over and take a look at that. Here we go. So when you go to Amazon and search for something, what you get on the left is what's called a faceted search. These are actually various selections that you can choose to filter the content based on brand, tire, etc. So if I select Schwinn, I'm going to now see all of the Schwinn bikes. If I'm looking for a certain type of frame, if I'm looking for a bike for a certain type of audience, a user, I can search for, a women's bike, and it can go on and on. So that's what a faceted search is. Now, luggage is essentially doing that as well. So when you go to a site such as Digital Access and use, I just did a broad search of accessibility here to show you, you can actually search the content on the site based on type and category. And then we even have some other term vocabularies to use, such as news type, people category, and event. I didn't get into all of those today, but they all play a role in this categories and tags concept to help people find content. So you can see that there's 28 pages on this website that are related to accessibility. There's 12 pages that are related to events. And when I select that, my list, my search, is filtered for that specific kind of content. And now I can say, oh, they also talk about usability. I didn't realize that. So now you're all of a sudden finding things that you didn't know you were even looking for. And so this is also a way to engage your end user when they're searching. You can also see that categories and tags are listed at the bottom of the content. So another thing that you can select. So maybe you saw that first instead of on the left. You know, you can select these terms and say, I'm interested in accessibility workshops. Okay, now I'm seeing all of the accessibility workshops. All right. I believe that's all I have for today. So I feel badly. I know that I went over my 20 minutes. But if you have any questions, please feel free to type those in the chat. I'm more than happy to help answer them. And again, we have people standing by that are happy to answer as well. So I'd like to give you some time. I know that this is a lot of information to really think about. And if you have specific questions in regards to the websites you're working on, we're more than happy to help answer those too. This is a very nice place for you to learn from each other. And certainly you may have questions that you're thinking of, but I'm sure that someone else could benefit from that answer as well. Oh, great questions. Okay. So it looks like we have a question about what if the hamburger button on your site's been removed or disabled? That can actually be put on within a few seconds. So if you'd like to have it and your site doesn't have it, we can add that very quickly. You know, the reason that sometimes when sites get stood up, we make a conscious decision to not put a hamburger button, which is what it used to be. And now on our new theme, we have changed that hamburger button to actually say content by category. And let's go to, I believe Monarch has an example of that. Yeah. So instead of a hamburger, you can actually see a drop-down list for content by category. But again, the reason we may not do that is maybe the site was very early in development, or I guess in early development, there weren't very many categories that were created, or there was a need, not a need for it. Sometimes a site that has 5, 6, 10 pages doesn't need a hamburger or content by category. So we really do strategize a bit about where that should be. But you need to know that whether your site has the little hamburger button or content by category or not, if you're using luggage, your site is getting all the benefits of those categories and tags just the same, because you're sharing that information, you're categorizing and tagging content, and it's being shared with Google. So it is actually benefiting you, and we can certainly click that on for you very quickly. Okay, what are the modules for faceted search? That's probably a bit of a developer question. So I'm sure that they can talk to you a little bit about that. We do have, with Drupal, a lot of that is built in. There's a core module for taxonomy, and that's what's used. We also use Solr Search. So basically, it's a way that you can search your website using a search, I'll just say search engine. I don't know if that's a proper term, that actually knows your content. So we use a search engine that is familiar with Drupal, and it understands Drupal's nodes, fields, and essentially setup, so that it can really dig in and find those taxonomy terms and then turn around and share them, obviously, with other search engines like Google. So also, those of you that want to get a bit deeper, there was a presentation a couple years ago that we did at DrupalCorn, and you may benefit from that. I think I can go ahead and see if one of the developers want to put it. Oh, there, it's already there. They're on the same page as what I, okay. So you can view this little presentation, which does actually talk a little bit about modules. So, oh, I'm looking at this other question here, but it's useful for navigating search. Correct. Yes. So absolutely. So turning that on can definitely help people find things and search your site even better. So yeah, let's get it on. Are there any other questions that we can help answer? These are great questions. Okay. I want to give you a moment or two. Sometimes people think about questions, and I've heard that they try to type them in and then I close the webinar. So I'm trying not to do that today. All right. As always, if you would like to have more information or sit down and talk with me about your website, your categories and tags, and how to do them more efficiently, or to get them displayed, we can certainly work with you to do that. Feel free to send me an email or call me, and we can certainly get together. All right. Thank you all very much for attending today, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. I'm going to go ahead and close out the webinar.